Can you hear me? Thank you for coming, and welcome to the 2020 Westwood Town Meeting. I'm informed by our clerk, Dottie Powers, that we do have a quorum. So I will officially call this meeting to order. I see we do have some people still registering, so we're going to take care of some preliminary matters. First, we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance by Westwood's two Boy Scout troops, and I'll introduce them in a moment. Following that, we'll have a moment of silence for those who have served the town that have passed away within the past year. Then our clerk is going to swear in our newly elected officials. After that, I will read the town meeting rules. As soon as I do that, the chair of the select board, Nancy Hyde, is going to come up and give her presentation. And then Pamela Dukeman, our assistant town administrator and finance director, is going to come up and also give a brief presentation on the articles that we're going to deal with this evening. So the first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm inviting to the microphone now Ellie Turek from Troop 1 in Islington, Daniel Wasserman and Charlie Goodman from Troop 3 in Westwood. If you guys would come up, please. Just so everybody knows you. Allie, raise your hand. Charlie, and over here, guys. Daniel. And you may lower your masks while you do the Pledge of Allegiance. As soon as you're ready, guys. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Nice round of applause for these guys. Thank you. All right. We have lost a few people who have been active in town, serving on various boards. I'd like to have a moment of silence for them. They are Ann Bean, Carol Blumenthal, Jean Brooks, Betty Connors, Lee McQuarrie, and Jim Riley. I'd also ask that you keep in mind those who have lost their lives within the past year because of their race or ethnicity, and particularly those who are Black Americans. All right, thank you. Clerk Powers, ready to swear in the elected officials?
I am. Congratulations to all who were elected to town offices at the annual town election held on Tuesday, June 2nd. At this time, I would like our newly elected officials to stand when your name is called to be recognized and given the oath of office. Albert F. Wizialko, Collector of Taxes. Christine E. Previtera, Office of Housing Authority. Maureen Murphy Von Yu, Office of Library Trustee. And you can also stay standing, everybody. Mary Beth Pearsons, Office of Library Trustee. James M. O'Sullivan, Office of Town Moderator. Robert R. Gotti, Office of Planning Board. Charles L. Donahue, Jr., Office of School Committee. Amanda L. Phillips, Office of School Committee. Michael F. Walsh, Office of Select Board. Francis X. McPherson, Jr., Office of Sewer Commissioner. David W. Krumsiak, Office of Sewer Commissioner. Diane E. Hayes, Office of Sewer Commissioner. Now, if you could also please raise your right hands and repeat after me. I, please state your name, do solemnly swear and affirm that I will faithfully, according to the best of my knowledge and ability, perform the duties of the office in which I was elected to, in accordance with the bylaws of the town of Westwood and the laws of the Commonwealth. And before you leave this evening, I ask that you come up, if you haven't already, to the stage to sign the certificate of oath. And thank you all for your time and commitment to the Westwood community. And let's give them a big round of applause and recognize that this was not a typical election year. You all worked hard despite the challenges faced during this pandemic. Thank you.
Is there anyone here that is new to town meeting? Never been to a town meeting before? Okay, that's good. It is a 375-year, at least, tradition, uniquely New England. And what you see tonight is something we've never done before. We're usually indoors at 7 o'clock in the evening, jammed together in a tiny room. It's an experiment for all of us. Some of the things we're doing now will be temporary, some will be permanent. I applaud the town officials who made this evening happen. Very capable, they're all very prepared. Dottie Powers in the clerk's office, running the town election and making sure this happened. Our select board, chaired by Nancy Hyde. We also have John Hickey and Mike Walsh. Jared Orsini, our public health director, who has been advising us on the safety procedures. We have a terrific new town administrator, Chris Coleman. Because of experience, this has gone very seamlessly. Thank you, Chris. Tonight, we are operating under a court order issued by Judge Connors of the Norfolk Superior Court on May the 25th, and that's because of the foresight of the Select Board, who authorized our town council, Pat Ahern, to obtain an injunction. When they made that vote on May the 4th, it was cool. We weren't sure we would get 175 people. I'm not sure if we have 175 yet. 193. Oh, I guess we have passed that. And so I'll thank Chris Coleman for making sure we had good weather tonight. Chris, maybe you can guarantee it next year, so we can do this again. Do people like meeting outdoors? Guess not. The chairs are spaced out to comply with the social distancing. If you're from the same household, you may move your chairs together. We have 3 men who are going to run around with microphones if you wish to speak on the articles. We have Rick, Randy, and Alan. If you wish to speak, you were issued a red card. Hold that up so I can see you. I will recognize you and give you an opportunity to speak. People who speak, the proponent of the article will speak first, and anyone who speaks has a 5-minute time limit. And there's also an additional limit that you may not speak more than twice on an article without permission of the moderator. When you do speak, they'll come to you. They will hold the microphone for you. You do not need to hold it. They will clean it afterwards. But this is a big field. There's only 3 of them, so I just ask for your patience. We will get the microphone to you. When you do speak, you may lower your face covering in order to speak. They will disinfect it afterwards, but we ask that you keep your face coverings on throughout town meeting. So those are some of the rules. I'll go over some more of them when we get into the articles, but at this point, I'll ask Nancy Hyde to come up and address town meeting.
Little relief here. Hello, everyone. As Jim has said, I'm Nancy Hyde. I'm the current chair of your select board. And I want to join in also thanking everyone for coming here this afternoon. I am absolutely amazed and delighted that so many of you came out here today. The fact that we're approaching 200 people is just beyond our wildest expectations. And I know the weather certainly helps and being outside helps, so thank you to each and every one of you for taking the time to do this. So I'm here just to make a few announcements, and I'd like to start with acknowledging as well the addition of Christopher Coleman as our town administrator. Chris joined us at the end of November 2019, which frankly feels like almost a decade ago. And while none of us would have anticipated the challenges the town has faced over the past 6 months, I want you all to know that Chris has proven he's ready for any and all challenges that come his way. He's a dedicated public servant to this town, and we are very fortunate to have him. So next, it's my pleasure and honor to announce and congratulate this year's recipient of the John J. Cronin Public Service Award. And this has been awarded annually since 2003. This prestigious award is named after the late John J. Cronin. And for those of you who were in town back before 2003, you might have known him as our town treasurer. He, for many years, gave selflessly of his time for the betterment of this community, both as an elected official and through numerous volunteer activities. And I'm pleased to announce this year's award recipient is Mr. Stephen Rafsky. Steve, would you please stand? So the select board will make a more formal presentation at another date, but we did want to make the announcement today. I'm glad so many people are here to hear that you are the recipient, Steve. And it's always been our practice at annual town meetings to also thank individuals moving on from their service as elected officials. This year, our appreciation goes to Josepha Jowdy, who has served on the school committee for the past 27 years. Josepha, please stand. And I also want to thank Brian Gorman, who served on the planning board for the last 3 years. I don't know if Brian's here. If he is, please stand. Okay, but let's thank both of them for their service. And I know Joseph isn't going far, and we know where to find you. And I would also like to, on behalf of the select board, thank all our residents who have served on committees and boards this past year. You always do a lot of work, but then to go into a pandemic and still conduct the business of the town in very distinguished ways, we're very, very grateful. We value your time, energy, and commitment, and we thank you for your service. Before Pam Dukeman, our Assistant Town Administrator and Finance Director, comes up to the podium, I want to emphasize again, we are only covering warrant articles 1 through 13. They are this year's financial articles. The remaining articles have been removed from this town meeting and may be placed on the warrant for a future special town meeting or a future annual town meeting or a combination thereof. So it's my pleasure to introduce Pam Dukeman.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Pam Dukeman, 57 Sexton Ave, and I'm the Finance Director for the Town of Westwood. Usually at the start of town meeting each year, we give you an overview of the town finances to update you where we stand and to give you some background for the financial articles that you'll be voting. This year, we did pre-record that presentation, and our thanks to Westwood Media for their assistance in doing that. We hope that many of you were able to watch that presentation before coming tonight or had a chance to review the information in your town meeting warrant book. Just a few quick remarks before you go into looking at the budget articles. Our budget process was essentially complete before the onset of COVID-19, meaning that our Board of Selectmen, our school committee, and our Finance and Warrant Commission had gone through the regular budget process, presenting the budget, holding public hearings, doing the review process, and the Finance and Warrant Commission was able to complete their process and make their recommendations to you, what you see in the town meeting book. We are able to hold on to those budgets that were presented despite the impact of COVID-19. And we just want to take a few moments to explain why that's the case. Really, we're able to maintain those budgets because of you, our town meeting attendees. And we know that many of you are our regulars. We recognize the faces. You've been coming year after year. The last recession was about 10 years ago. Those were very difficult budget years for the town. And our town meeting since that time has been very deliberate to put our finances in a better position so that we were able to endure a rainy day situation without having to dismantle our school and town core services. We are today at that rainy day, and we will have to utilize some of the tools that town meeting put in place to help us keep our core services while we proceed through this COVID-19 impact. But really, it's because of the work our town meeting has done. Just to look at a couple of specific items. Our town meeting has been preparing for this rainy day for about 10 years. Our town meeting approves very structurally sound budgets. We do not subsidize our budgets with any one-time subsidies. Our town meeting approves very conservative revenue estimates. We do not inflate our revenue to try to spend more and then not be able to meet our revenue. Our town meeting has been very purposefully building our reserve accounts over the last 10 years. Our finances have been constructed to help us maintain our essential services during a rainy day disruption. And again, at this point, when we're at that rainy day, we are going to be able to maintain our most important school and town services in FY21 and help us bridge to FY22. Specifically, looking at some revenue. Our tax revenue, our main revenue is our tax base. We do work under the limits of Proposition 2.5. Our town meeting has been very careful to not assume that we want to spend to the very limit of what Prop 2.5 allows. Proposition 2.5 puts in place an upper limit. Our town meeting over the last 4 years has done an average of about $1.1 million less than what that limit is each year. Meaning that town meeting could have in each of those years voted an additional $1 million towards the school or town budgets and really pushed our tax levy. They did not do so. They have been conservative. And that happens through being conservative with what our estimates are each year for new tax growth coming from new construction in town. This is different than what some other towns do. And you're seeing some surrounding communities who put budgets in place for FY21 and now have to go back and pull back those budgets from the school or municipal departments. And one reason is because they have overinflated their new growth under their tax levy. In another area, the meals and hotel tax revenue. This is a revenue source that is subject to fluctuation during an economic downturn and certainly will be impacted during this COVID-19 situation. When our town meeting adopted the hotel and meals tax revenue a couple of years ago, they very purposefully knew it was a revenue that could fluctuate with the economy. They set up a special fund that each year our hotel and meals revenue goes into a separate fund. It does not run through our general fund. We do not use it to fund our school and municipal ongoing operating budgets. The revenue goes into a separate fund. Only once it's in the fund can a future town meeting then vote it out by a 2/3 vote. We've had 2 town meetings where we've utilized some of that funding and only for one-time capital projects. Again, this is different than what some other communities are dealing with. They have their hotel and meals tax revenue for FY21 supporting their FY21 school and municipal budgets. They are now in a position where they cannot meet that revenue that they had estimated, and they are going back and pulling back from their school and municipal operating budgets. We do not have to do so. One more similar item in our local receipts revenue is our motor vehicle excise tax revenue. We saw during that last economic recession that the motor vehicle excess tax revenue can be fluctuate dramatically and decrease with an economic downturn. Because of that, since that time, we've been very conservative with our estimates for the motor vehicle excise revenue. We essentially level fund that revenue each year. We don't try to increase that revenue, chase the higher estimates, increase our spending on those estimates. We keep our level funded budget. If actual revenue comes in above the estimates, it flows into our general fund, into what's called free cash, essentially our retained earnings. And then again, that can be used by future town meetings, and our town meeting only utilizes free cash for capital budget projects. So this is another area very specifically where other towns put a budget in place for FY21. They had estimates for motor vehicle revenue that they are now not going to be able to meet. And again, they have to come and pull back from those budgets. Our town meeting has not done that. One other revenue item, state aid. State aid will be disrupted for FY21. We do not know yet what our state aid will be for FY21. The state will not get to that in their budget process until late in the summer, early fall. But they are dealing with an enormous loss of revenue with this COVID-19 situation. The state will try to retain local aid, particularly in the Chapter 70 education aid. The state will use their rainy day accounts. The state will use federal funding if available, but they will be hard-pressed to try to maintain level funding for state aid. State aid is not a significant portion of our budget. It's about 6% of our total budget. If we saw a reduction of about 10% in state aid, that would be about $600,000. If we saw a 20% reduction in state aid, about $1.2 million. We will be able to replace that loss in state aid, if it happens in the fall, with what we have in our reserve accounts. As I mentioned, our town meeting has very deliberately built our reserve accounts to appropriate levels. We currently have about $3.4 million in our stabilization reserve account. Town meeting, each and every year over the last several years, put money into that account preparing for the rainy day. That is not always easy to do. Each year at town meeting, there's always things that people would like to spend on, increase the budgets, do more capital, but town meeting was very conservative and always put money aside into that reserve account. It is now a rainy day. Many of those years when we were building that reserve, we would have people ask, well, what do you consider a rainy day, or when would we ever use that? Right now is the perfect example. That stabilization fund will allow us to handle any disruption to state aid. When we know what happens, we will have a fall town meeting. We will be able to adjust our budget accordingly. And again, our effort is to maintain our core services in our school and municipal departments. We don't want to be in a situation that you're seeing some other towns in that are sending hundreds of notices of layoffs to teachers and other staff. So our town meeting, again, has allowed us to not be in that situation. One other item, free cash. I've mentioned that. It's our reserve account. We have very specific policies. It's our retained earnings. It's very specific policies on how much we use of that each year. Our town meeting is very conservative. We only utilize about half of what our annual appropriation is for free cash. We only use it for capital budget items. We do not apply it to our operating budget. So this year, after the completion of town meeting, we will still have significant revenue in the free cash, and that again will be a source that we can use to make sure we can maintain our budgets for FY21. Finally, as we go forward in the fall with the FY21 adjustments, we will have some state and federal funding available. The federal government has issued funding for the COVID-19 impact. That will come in the way of FEMA money to deal with some of the emergency costs, and what's been called the CARES Act. The federal government set in place the CARES Act. They distributed money out to the states. The state of Massachusetts is distributing that money to communities on a per capita basis. Some of that funding is being utilized to help us with the current year. We did experience some impact on costs in this fiscal year through this June 30th for our town and school departments. Those included things like public safety staffing impact, additional cleaning and sanitation to our buildings, additional IT work for school and town services to go remote. So items such as that, this state and federal funding will help us to supplement that. There will be also additional CARES money that we can use in the FY21 budget. The state has not yet issued what those guidelines are. As you can imagine, watching things happen, it's kind of changing and evolving. We don't know yet exactly how we can use that funding, but we will have that funding available. When we come to the fall, we will know how we can use that, and we can utilize that money to help with additional impact that we have from some of the costs I just identified, as well as additional impact for departments that are going to have to provide services differently with the COVID-19. And specifically, that's the school department and how they're going to have to change perhaps how they're providing services to the children, our library, recreation departments, those departments that are bringing in large groups of people. So all of those items that town meeting has done, coupled with our reserves, coupled with the state and federal funding, put us in place that we can continue with the FY21 budgets as approved by the Finance and Warrant Commission. So you are voting, as was stated, just Articles 1 through 13 this year really are standard budget articles. Articles 1 and 2 each year are the articles that we use to clean up the current year's budget. So this year, the FY20 budget that ends on June 30th. We actually have no article needed this year for Article 1. Typically, that's where we deal with any snow and ice budget supplement. That's really the one good thing we had this year was that it was a mild winter. And that is helping us overall because we did not have to utilize any of our reserve account, any of our free cash just to handle a snow and ice supplement. So no action needed in Article 1. Article 2 is some additional appropriations for the current year. The main item there is $350,000 being appropriated from free cash into the school special education reserve account. This is an account that the schools can use to help them with unanticipated, unexpected special education cost. Money that's appropriated into that account to be utilized during the year requires a vote of both the school committee and the select board. Article 3 will be our annual operating budget. Articles 4 through 9 are capital budget articles. Articles 4 and 5 specifically are our standard municipal and school capital budget articles. We're appropriating similar amount as we did in the current year. That is our ongoing reinvestment to maintain our buildings and to have rollover of our capital equipment. Some of our departments, particularly DPW and our fire departments, are very reliant on large equipment in order to provide their services safely and efficiently. Article 6 is our sewer capital, regular capital budget article funded by sewer retained earnings. Article 7, a small amount of funding with our ambulance receipts. Article 8 is an additional capital budget article. We've done this the last couple of years to do some additional capital beyond our base. This article is $1.3 million. Many of the items listed there are Part 2 of projects that town meeting had appropriated Phase 1 of last year. Also includes some funding for some school and municipal security projects. All of this article is funded by free cash, and again, that's cash we have on hand, and again, we're only using a small portion of our total allocation. Article 9 was a proposed additional capital article for some town-wide recreation projects, including field and pool work, just over $1 million. This article had been proposed to be funded with our hotel and meals tax revenue. The Finance and Warrant Commission is not recommending that that article go forward at tonight's town meeting. Article 10 is to request town meeting to authorize us to borrow $325,000 for a piece of large equipment for the DPW department. That's a bit larger amount than we normally do on a cash basis with capital, so we are asking authorization to borrow that. We would do a small payback period, less than a 5-year period for that borrowing. Article 11 is our small annual appropriation into our stabilization account. Article 12, our annual funding for our OPEB liability, keeping us on track with that with that liability. And finally, Article 13, a road improvement bond for $4.65 million. This article is asking town meeting to authorize the town to borrow $4.65 million for some road work. That includes, the biggest piece is for Route 109 improvements, $2.5 million. This is a continuation of Part 1 that was approved at last year's town meeting, the sidewalks and granite curbing that you saw at the far end of 109 down by Bubbling Brook. The appropriation this year would allow all of 109 to be done from the Walpole line down to Route 128. The second piece of the road bond, $500,000 for crosswalk improvements, safety enhancements to all crosswalks throughout town. Third, $1.6 million for some sidewalk and paving enhancements in different areas in town. Specifically, the sidewalk projects include the High Rock and Hartford Street area, Hartford Street from 109 to Wessex, Pond Street from Clapboard Tree to Pond Plain, and East Street from MBTA Bridge to Smith Drive. I do want to point out that this road bond does not include any funding for sidewalks on Gay Street. We would ask for authorization for this road bond as a borrowing article. Town Treasurer Jim Gavin would issue a 10-year bond for this debt. The debt service for this bond can be paid within Proposition 2.5. It will be replacing our last road bond, which was about 10 years ago, that's ending. As that bond ends and the debt drops off, this bond will come online within the debt budget, so we can keep that within Proposition 2.5. That does complete our review of the articles. We thank you for your attention to the town finances. And again, particularly this year, we thank our long-term town meeting members who have put us in a position by your work over the last several years to be in a position where we can keep our budgets in place, maintain our core services. We're in a position to endure through this rainy day situation and bridge us through until the future year. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. And I want to thank Pam for taking the time to record her presentation ahead of time. I hope you had a chance to review it. She did a spectacular job, as she always does. I want to thank the Finance and Warrant Commission for doing their work in such a diligent manner. When the pandemic broke, everything was uncertain. They made sure they got their work done under the guidance of Bob Delisle, well in advance of our planned town meeting on May the 4th. Same with the Planning Board. They acted diligently as well, and although we're not going to address any Planning Board articles this evening, they did work hard and got their work done. So, when we're going to address the articles, we're going to address them in the order that they're presented in the book. The article comes before town meeting on the motion of the FinCom. There'll be a second, and then we'll allow discussion on the article. If you would like to discuss the article, if you have something to say, please stand or raise your card. I'll try to recognize you, and we have Randy and Rick and Alan who have the microphones. Be patient, they'll get there, you'll have an opportunity to speak. Please limit your remarks to the article, to the issue. Town bylaws say avoid personalities. What that means is you don't want to speak in favor of an article or against an article because of some individual in town. You don't want to argue that this article should not pass because it's supported by Jim O'Sullivan and he's a no-good lawyer. That may be true, but that's not the reason the article should fail if it should. So please limit your remarks to the article. When someone is speaking, please be respectful of them. Do not comment, criticize, boo, clap, cheer, or hiss while they're speaking. They're taking the time to address us. This is a legislative body. We are all legislators, and they have just as much opportunity to speak as you do. I ask that you do not videotape people while they speak. We are recording this. Thank you to Westwood Media Center. They're here with our permission. Although it's not being streamed live, it will be available. And I do want to thank Westwood Media Center for all it's done this past spring, enabling all our town boards to meet, and particularly for the service they've given us this evening. Articles, if you want to amend an article, you must submit your amendment in writing. If anyone has the intent of doing that this evening, come up and speak to Mr. Paul Fitzgerald, our Assistant Town Moderator. He has amendment forms, and he and our Town Council, Pat Ahern, will take a look at it. And as long as it's in order, we'll have an opportunity to address an amendment. If you hear my gavel, please stop speaking until we address a point of order. Limit your remarks to 5 minutes. The proponent of the article speaks first under our rules, and you may not speak more than twice without permission of the moderator. When we're ready to vote, I will call for a voice vote. I will ask for I will ask people to raise their card. You cannot vote if you have not registered. If you didn't register, you didn't get one of these cards. But I'll ask the aye votes to raise their cards. We'll count those, and then I'll ask the nay votes. We won't take a count at first. No, actually, we'll do a voice vote first. I'll interpret that vote, and I'll say it appears to be a vote in favor or a vote against. The town meeting has an opportunity to challenge my interpretation. The way to do that is for 7 people to rise or raise their cards. If 7 people challenge my interpretation, then we will count the votes, and you'll vote by holding up the cards. My apologies. Once a vote is taken, it is final unless there is a reconsideration of the vote. Reconsideration may only happen on the first night of the vote. It may only happen once, and a motion for reconsideration may only be made by someone who voted on the losing side of the vote. So those are the rules. I'd like to deal with some preliminaries. Would someone care to make a motion to waive the reading of the warrant? Is there a second? All in favor of waiving the reading of the warrant, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. Madam Clerk, it is a unanimous vote in favor. Someone care to make a motion that we conclude our business this evening by 10 o'clock? Is there a second? With that motion, Madam Hyde can give me the discretion to extend 30 minutes if necessary, if I think we conclude. All in favor of 10 o'clock closing, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, it appears to be a unanimous vote in favor, and it is a unanimous vote in favor. The last issue is indefinite postponement. There is one article where the FinCom is recommending indefinite postponement, so I'm going to save the instructions until then. As Mrs. Dukeman said, Article 1 requires no action, so we're going to go straight to Article 2. Article 2 is a motion to see if the town will vote to appropriate by transfer from available funds the sum of $44,000 to supplement the following fiscal year 2020 appropriations as specified in the article. It comes before town meeting on the motion of FinCom that the town so vote. Is there a second? Second. Okay. Is there any discussion on the article? I don't see any. Are we ready to vote? All in favor of Article 2, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Article 3 is our operating budget, and it is to see what sum of money the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds and/or borrow for the operation of the municipal departments and the public school system for the fiscal year July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2021, as set forth in Appendix D of the Finance and Warrant Commission's report to the 2020 annual town meeting, or take any other action thereon. It comes before town meeting on Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to read the budget pages in the article, starting on page 44. If anyone has a question on any item on that page, please call out hold, and we'll come back to that. We're going to start on page 44, and we're going to go through page 50. So starting on page 44. Page 45. Page 46. Page 47. Page 48. Page 49. Page 50. I heard no holds. Are we ready to vote? Yes. All in favor of Article 3? Oh, I'm sorry. We have someone down here who wishes to speak? Okay.
Doug Obie, 435 High Street. I'm a CFP emeritus and have been a financial advisor for over 30 years. My expertise is in geopolitical economics. The CPI, Consumer Price Index, which all of you know that is what our Social Security goes up by. Some pensions are also linked to that. That went down in May by 0.1%. And by almost a full percent in April. The CPI has averaged 1.76% over the past decade, which translates to a 19% increase in Social Security benefits over that same period. And yet there are some town officials who have seen their salaries increase in this town by 50 to 75% over that same period. According to most economic experts, this downturn will be far worse than the Great Recession, with unemployment stuck in double digits for years. There will be no V-shaped recovery, not even a U-shaped recovery. It'll take several years to recover from this deflationary recession or depression, meaning prices will be coming down, not going up. We can't afford to be paying 2.5% more in taxes each and every year. I'm proposing a moratorium on tax increases for the time being, but certainly for this year. As Pam Dukeman said, we have a rainy day fund. I would suggest this isn't a rainy day, it's a pouring rainstorm. And with that, there should be no salary increases. They simply won't be needed as prices come down. And I understand this was all done pre-coronavirus, but we are where we are. And people are going to have to pay those 2.5% increases. And yet their incomes aren't going up, especially so many people in town that are on fixed incomes. We all know you can only earn maybe 1% with safe assets, which most people that are retired have to keep their money in. So if in fact we can keep salaries where they are for this year, except for police and fire who put their lives on the lines to keep us safe every year, all right, I think we can then afford to bypass the 2.5% increase. Now, I understand we have contracts that we have to abide by, but that's where the rainy day fund should come in. And if, in fact, we can't reduce these increases, then at least this will give, if we don't raise the taxes, and we have to go into the rainy fund to pay whatever increases that we're obligated to pay, then at least it'll give us an impetus to negotiate lower salary increases in the future. All right? So with that, I just want to point out some things. All right, for example, the Select Board Department went up by 5.3% their salaries. That's 3 times what the average person is getting in Social Security increase. The Treasury Department went up 7.1%. That's probably 4 times. The Human Resource Department up 4.5%, more than twice. The Town Clerk Department, 4%. That's more than twice as much as Social Security. All right? The And then the planning division, 8.1%, housing and zoning division, 4.5%, community and economic development, 6%. And then you have the, I'm sure this is a very important position, but Dean of Students up 39.5%. All right, I would suggest there's got to be a way that we can postpone the 2.5% tax increase this year and still pay our obligations, and then look in the future after we see how severe this is to then reinstate whatever increases the town wants to afford these people. Thank you.
Number 2 is this gentleman right here, and then I see a woman over here on my right will be number 3. Is there anyone else? And a couple in the back. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Brian Kamaker. I live at 95 University Avenue. Similar to the previous speaker, I have some serious concerns about this article in the budget. You know, as you mentioned, our country and the state's economy is taking an enormous hit, and we don't know where it's going. I know people in this town who've lost their jobs, who've lost their businesses, and don't know when it's ever going to come back, if it does. It's been said that 18% of the businesses in this state are not coming back. I know, you know, down where I live, most of those stores have been empty for a long time when they should have been, or normally would have had people. But this budget does not reflect that. It is, you know, raising our taxes by 2.5%. It is tone deaf to the reality around us. And as the previous speaker said, you can go pages and pages in this booklet and see all of the raises that all of the classes of people are getting. Except it seems that the fire and the police department aren't getting raises. But I'm not getting a raise. I'd like to know which people in this audience are getting a raise. I'm not. I'm probably going to get less money. And also, I'm very concerned that there's a lot of expensive new projects being taken on in these other items that don't reflect the state of the economy that's going on around us. And you know, it's not like Westwood has not been getting a lot of extra revenue. I mean, University Avenue has been huge. There's 2 giant office buildings that are getting built right now. There's all these giant houses in town that are being built. It's not like extra money isn't coming in. But we're being told that we're lucky that we're not facing a 2.5 override. And I think that we need to vote down Article 3 and let the Finance Committee go back to the drawing board and come back in the fall with something that it makes more sense for the residents of this town who are struggling. We need to do this for our neighbors. This isn't a normal year, so thank you very much.
One here, then one in the back, and I think I saw someone in the way back be number 5. So number 3 is this woman over here on the right.
I'm Marla Schwartz, and I live at 32 Westwood Glen Road. And it's my understanding that a great many of the salaries are fixed by contract, and that the police and the fire department salaries are in fact fixed by law, state law. As for the cost of living index, it's my experience as someone on Social Security that my Social Security check, cost of living increase, and the real cost of living have nothing to do with one another. That the cost of living goes up much more than the increase does. So that's for anyone on a salary or anyone on Social Security.
All right.
Hi, Sandra Castelldini, 54 Birch Street. Similar to the other folks, this seems really loud. I think it's a matter of timing. It didn't seem like the FinCom got to look at these budgets after COVID, right? So for folks who are not under union contract, like Select Board Department, Finance and Warrant, Treasurer Committee, their increases should be looked at. I know from my personal experience, I'm lucky to still be having my job. They didn't have any increases for this year, and they've already told us that next year there won't be any increases. And that's how we're able to save FTEs. I know that the school committee has already talked about losing 14 FTEs, and we're talking about giving people increases. So it just doesn't seem to reflect the economy right now, and I think we need to take a look at it in these times. Thank you.
I see one woman way in the back. Is there anyone else who's waiting to speak?
Hi,
Okay. And somebody way in the back on the left will be next. Go ahead, ma'am.
I'm Jamie Allen. I live on 530 Pond Street. And I agree with a lot of the sentiment in this room. I do appreciate all the hard work of the different committees, our town clerk office, so many in this town that make Westwood just such a wonderful place to live. We've lived here 27 years. But I too believe we need to vote this down and take a look at this budget in light of our current economic situation. I'll say that in terms of our governor and his executive orders, those apply to agencies, not to individuals. The legislature makes laws for individuals. So it's my understanding that it was actually this town that closed businesses and are opening them very gingerly. And these businesses, many of them, we may lose them completely. They are hurting. I don't understand why perhaps their taxes aren't cut. And we postponed the work on 109 and the sidewalks and, of course, raises. I have friends in this town who have lost their jobs. My husband isn't getting a raise this year, and he's lucky to have a job. I just feel like this is, I think someone said tone deaf. I feel like there's no compassion or empathy for our fellow neighbors, and we're just forcing this along as though nothing is going on. So I believe we need to vote this down and revisit it in the fall. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have my binoculars way in the back.
Hello. My name is Alicia Weishville. I live at 115 Stanford Drive, Westwood. And I would have to agree with a lot that's being said about this 2.5% increase. As an average citizen going through, this whole COVID, my family has been affected, being out of work, just trying to make ends meet. We don't even have a date in sight as to when things will pick back up for us, when work will continue. We don't have the benefit of having a town job. So I would encourage all my fellow citizens to take under consideration how much of an impact other citizens have already suffered and are continuing to suffer, and would ask the same, that we put this 2.5% increase. We're already at a point of make and break in some families, and to increase at this time is really just gonna hurt a lot of your fellow community members. Some that have lived here for years, including myself, may have to start to think about relocating. I've had my son graduate from the high school. I have my younger son going into the middle school. We've been here for so long. This is our community. And I just hope that other voices would speak up and understand that there are a lot of families that are facing a lot of financial crisis right now. And I hope that you would agree to hold off on this as well. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who cares to address town meeting? See anything, Paul? Oh, I'm sorry, over here on left. They want you to stay there.
Hi, Anthony Mullen, Chair of the Westwood School Committee. First of all, I'd like to echo, I do understand these are very challenging times. It's been very challenging times for the schools as well. But I just want to say a few things. I support this article, and let me just tell you why. We, as a school committee, made the decision just at our last meeting to cut to the 14.5 positions. And I worry if this does not go through, that would lead to draconian additional cuts. It could mean counselors not there for the kids in the fall. It could mean teachers not there in the fall. We need to support the kids this fall as they re-enter. Let me just say that again. I think this community has always supported the schools. And if we have to cut additional positions, it could mean social worker gets cut, that counselors get cuts, teachers, the staff needs to be there for the kids. And so I argue that, so please support this article for the children. Second, a couple other things. The school administration, Superintendent Parks and her team made the voluntary decision to actually not take pay increases this year. And I'd like to applaud them. It's not, in the realm of things, it's not huge money, but they did understand the needs of the community. The other thing I want to say is our collective bargaining units, the ones that bargained this spring, similarly took a 0% increase as well. So we hear you, we're working with them. You know, we do have other collective bargaining that are longer term, but we have heard the community and we've worked to do this. So please support this article, because the costs, if this fails, we will literally be cutting additional teachers and counselors, and we need them in the schools this fall. Thank you.
Okay, we got the gentleman, Mr. Hammaker's second occasion to speak. Is there anybody else waiting so we can have microphones ready for you? Okay.
You know, I had a feeling that this argument was going to come up. I don't see anything in the budget that means that teachers or any school staff will have to be cut. That is, I've worked with towns for almost 40 years, and that's one of the first things that you hear every time anybody talks about cutting extra money. According to this budget in black and white, that's simply not true. There is plenty of money to not fire anybody in the schools. Just don't do a lot of the extra things that they had planned to do. Do not believe that kind of pie in the, sky is falling hysteria, because it's simply not true according to this budget. Thank you.
Any other discussion? I'm sorry, way in the back.
Not a problem. Please be heard. Thank you.
Hello, Corinne Campbell, 1189 High Street. So that's Route 109. Mine's more of a question. They did the sidewalks in front of our house, and when I actually called the town to ask if they would be done, they said they were waiting for the state funding and that Route 109 was funded by the state as well. So I just wanted to understand who's actually paying for that, because it doesn't sound like it's supposed to be us, it's supposed to be the state.
Is this Article 13? Okay.
Whatever was related to
sorry,
paying
was
for
that
Route
one?
109.
This is not the article that deals with that.
Yeah. The article on improvement of Route 109 is Article 13. We'll address that at that time. Anyone else wish to discuss the budget? Over here. Right here in the front, third row, fourth row.
Hi, my name is Steven Springer. I live at 456 Hartford Street. Could somebody in the town administration enlighten us as to what would happen if we vote this article down?
Pam?
Can you hear me? Sorry, okay. We have to have a balanced budget each year to start off our new fiscal year, July 1. The state with the COVID-19 has made an exception that they've never done before, saying that if towns could not hold their annual town meeting, they could get a 1/12 budget process approved for July.
Pam,
That we,
could just move away from
I'm
the mic. You're
sorry.
getting a bit of an echo.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, that we could only work on a 1/12 budget just because of the COVID-19 situation. You're not allowed to build in any increases to that budget. You have to live within the 1/12 appropriation. If we do not have this budget here, we would have to go to the schools and they would have multiple additional layoff notices they would have to give. 70% of the budget here is the school and municipal operating budgets. I know people see capital budget articles. Those are funded with free cash. That cannot be used to supplement and replace to fund our operating budget. So our operating budget is 70% school and municipal, and within each of those budgets, 80% of the budget is salaries. So as Chairman Mullin said, if the budget is not balanced, and we have to live with basically this year's budget appropriation, we would have to go to the school, tell them that's their allocation. They do have a collective bargaining agreement in place with the school teachers for FY21, and to meet that obligation, they would have to give notice of multiple layoffs to other teaching staff.
Was this Mr. Obie again, second time?
Just a quick question. So if I understand, Pam, if this is voted down, we would be stuck with the budget we had last year. Is that correct?
Correct. The state put that in place just for COVID-19.
Okay, so if in fact we afforded our Westwood lifestyle last year on last year's budget, then I imagine we'd be able to do it this year.
Well, I know, as you know, Doug, going through the book, the health insurance budget's increased, our other fixed costs are increased. I just mentioned there is a collective bargaining agreement with teachers that their salaries would be increased in FY21. So we cannot make those increases in the current year's budget without having layoffs of staff.
Could the rainy day fund be used to supplement the budget?
We're going to have some of that available because of what might happen with state aid and those other items I mentioned in the beginning.
So the answer is yes, it could be.
Not to supplement what we need for this growth.
Okay, thank you.
Way down in the back, right in the center aisle. Is there anyone else? Raise your hand, we can get the mic ready for you.
Thank you. Christina Martin, 23 Brookfield Road. I have 3 kids in the Westwood school system, and I can tell you, up until the past 3 months, I've been blessed that they've had perfect health, no major issues, no behavior problems. I have seen my kids struggle in a way that has been so painful. Whatever way they go back to school in the fall, the teachers are going to have a hell of a job dealing with all the mental health issues that are going to be walking into the classrooms. We cannot afford
to lose any teachers. We definitely cannot lose social workers. They are going to be so critical to the health of the young people in this town. And as much as I hate to see any family struggling with the taxes, because it's hard and it hurts, we also know the reality is that a major asset for most of us is the home we live in, and that value is driven by the public schools. So if our schools fall apart and our kids are falling apart, our homes will be falling apart, meaning the heart of the home. We cannot afford to lose the support at the Westwood Public Schools. And to the gentleman in the front who said, just cut out all the extras, I am confident the extras are going to be cut out. They are going to have to do so many creative things just to keep the kids safe. Never mind extras. So I really think this is in everyone's best interest not to lose any staff, any support at the public schools, help maintain what value there is in our homes, the major asset for most of us, and also really fight to keep the youth in our town healthy and functional and help them come back from this trauma.
Mrs. Hyde, did you want to speak?
First, I'd like to say that to all the people who have spoken so well tonight on many aspects of the budget, thank you. We struggle with this as well. We do every year because the town is entrusted with the taxpayers' money, and we're entrusted with delivering services to this community. Many passionate comments have been made about the school department. I'd like to mention the municipal services. Our police, fire, and DPW are essential to maintaining the town, taking care of the people, taking care of children, taking care of our elders, making sure our roads are safe. This budget wasn't done in an era of we can spend whatever we want. It was done under the auspices of we need to provide a quality of services that the townspeople are here and expect to receive. If we start chipping away at percentages or budget line items and think that we're doing anything other than diminishing the quality of services in the town, then I would have to say to you, you're not living in the reality that we're dealing with. We need these services for the quality of life we have. We got through the Great Recession. We may be going into a depression. Every decision we make before we spend the money that gets approved at tonight's town meeting will be made carefully. And there have been times back in the recession when the state said, even your school support money coming from the state is now cut off. And we had to stop funding certain things to be sure that we could continue to provide the services, the essential services in town. If we start arbitrarily taking away from this budget tonight, we do need to start laying people off. There'll be no other choice. And that is something, when Pam spoke at the beginning of tonight, what she, and of all great things that she said, is saying to you, we can work with this budget. We have a responsibility to the townspeople, but we can't just say the rainy day fund is now going to supplement this budget, because we know the state is having problems. We know the economy is having problems. We need those reserve funds to help us weather the storm of other funding sources not coming in particular state aid. But excise tax on cars will go down. There is no doubt. Meals tax has gone down. That's used for capital items. We know we are not dealing in an artificial reality here. We are here before you because this is the budget we are asking you to support so we can move forward and continue to deal with this crisis situation while not compromising the values we have in the town. I know some people will say, I don't agree with you. I understand that. I hope the supermajority of this town meeting will agree and allow us to move forward. Thank you.
Was there someone up the back who wished to speak? There was a gentleman standing in the last row. Were you just stretching, or did you wish to speak? Mr. Donahoe in the front, and then someone right by the camera.
Thank you all again for coming out tonight. My name is Charlie Donahue. I've been on the school committee for 6 years. We do not have our school committee meetings in hysteria. They've been very tough meetings for the last 3 months. We have 3,000 kids we're trying to somehow figure out to keep their education alive. Tony already mentioned our administration has accepted no salary increases, and our teachers accept no salary increases. We're in a pandemic that's never happened before. Every day is challenging. What's going to happen this summer? What's going to happen next year? The budget before you is as tight as it could be, hoping for the future. So it wasn't irresponsibly done. It wasn't done in hysteria. It was spent, a lot of careful time was spent looking at every option available, and I would strongly support you passing this, and it's not going to be the end. It's going to be an awful lot of work to be done on the next year, 2 years to keep education alive for the many kids that have suffered through this also.
I can hold it or you can?
I can hold it.
Okay, I just, thank you.
Phil Dunkelberger, 125 Sunrise Road. Is there any way that, without exploding this article, that the effort that was made by, apparently by the school administration and apparently the teachers, that really all of the town employees could make the same effort, so we don't have to deal with the conflict of trying to address the issue of the problems being experienced by all taxpayers who are losing jobs and thereby also perhaps losing health insurance and all of the other problems that occur here. Point of information, is it true that this could be amended so that the school committee were left whole, but certain other things were cut where it didn't seem to be absolutely essential? That, for example, salaries went up 8% or it's 3% or whatever it happens to be. Some gesture of understanding to the many individuals who are experiencing more hardship than the rest of us.
Well, in response to that question, anyone has the right to move to amend the budget. It has to be done in writing. It has to be specific. You have to specify a particular item that you wish to amend. If you're wishing to increase it, you have to have a corresponding decrease elsewhere in the budget. You can't just stand up at town meeting and ask us to amend it without being specific. We need to see it. We need to know what it is. What town meeting does is it votes on the budget up or down. If we vote it down, then my understanding is the select board has the authority under the new legislation to pass a 1/12 budget so that we would have to call a second town meeting. Are we ready to vote on the article?
One comment.
I'm sorry.
My name is Lema Jean-Baptiste. I'm the Director of Business and Finance in the Westwood Schools. I just wanted to clarify one point, which is that our budget includes about a 1.5 million increase. Most of that is contractual increases these were for contracts that are longstanding and had been voted prior to this proposed budget coming into place, including the teacher's contract. There are some bargaining units which we bargained with this spring, and those bargaining units acknowledged the context fiscally that we faced and agreed to 0% increases. And we've also, within the school department, all committed to 0% increases on any other contracts in which, or individual contracts, and in our leadership team, places in which we had control, we made sure that we were implementing a 0% increase. We have already made some reductions in our plans for next year, and that is in anticipation of increased costs. So even the proposed budget that you're seeing before you, we'll have to work within that number, and it's going to be a struggle working within that number because we anticipate increased costs for things such as personal protective equipment. Thank you.
To keep the record clear, I'm not sure if I asked for a second. Is there a second on Article 3? I hear a second now. I don't see anybody else wishing to speak. So all those in favor of Article 3, the fiscal year 21 operating budget, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. It appears to be a motion in favor. The vote required on this is majority. It appears to be a majority vote in favor. Madam Clerk, it is a majority vote in favor. We'll now proceed to Article 4, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $1,304,400 for the purchase, lease, or lease purchase of the following capital equipment and improvements which are specified in the article. Further provisions that each listed capital equipment or project must be authorized by a majority vote of the Select Board prior to any purchase and/or implementation of the project and/or expenditure of funds. And further, to direct the Select Board to trade as part of the purchase price or to sell or dispose of any equipment no longer necessary, and to authorize the Select Board to apply for and accept any state or federal grant or assistance or both that may be available for the purchases listed in the article or to take any other action thereon. This article comes on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission, which recommends the town so vote. Is there a second? Second. This article requires a majority vote. Does anybody wish to address town meeting on Article 4? I don't see anybody ready for a vote. Majority vote. All in favor of Article 4 indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. Madam Clerk, it is a unanimous vote in favor. Now on to Article 5. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $1,017,000 for the purchase, lease, or lease purchase of the capital equipment and improvements as specified in the article. Further, each listed capital equipment or project must be authorized by a majority vote of the Select Board prior to any purchase and/or implementation of the project and/or expenditure of funds. This article also directs the Select Board to trade as part of the purchase price or to sell or dispose of any equipment no longer necessary, and to authorize the Select Board to apply for and accept any state or federal grant or assistance, or both, that may be available for the specified purchases, and to take any other action thereon. This comes before town meeting on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote. Is there a second? There is a second. Is there any discussion on Article 5? I don't see anyone. All those in favor of Article 5, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. Madam Clerk, it is a unanimous vote in favor. Now on to Article 6, appropriation of $765,000 for sewer capital improvements. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $765,000 for the purchase, lease, or lease purchase of the specified capital equipment, projects, and/or improvements that are delineated in the article. Each listed capital equipment or project must be authorized by a majority vote of the Select Board prior to any purchase and/or implementation of a project and/or expenditure of funds. Also requires the Select Board to trade as part of the purchase price or to sell or dispose of any equipment no longer necessary, and to authorize the Select Board to apply for and accept any state or federal grant or assistance, or both, that may be available for any of the purchases specified in the article, and to take any other action thereon. This comes before town meeting on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission, which recommends the town so vote. I have heard a second. The vote required on this article is a majority vote. Is there any discussion on Article 6? I don't see anyone. All those in favor of Article 6 say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Madam Clerk, it appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Now on to Article 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $64,720 for the purchase, lease, or lease purchase of the specified capital equipment, projects, and/or improvements. Each listed capital equipment or project must be authorized by a majority vote of the Select Board prior to any purchase and/or implementation of project and/or expenditure of funds. Directs the Select Board to trade as part of the purchase price or to sell or dispose of any equipment no longer necessary, and to authorize the Select Board to apply for or accept any state or federal grant or assistance, or both, that may be available for any of the purchases as delineated in the article, or to take any other action thereon. This comes before town meeting on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission, which recommends the town so vote. Is there a second? There is a second. This article requires a majority vote. We all set, Pat? No. Any discussion on Article 7? I don't see any. All those in favor of Article 7, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Okay. We're on Article 8 now. Excuse me. We're now on to Article 8. To see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the sum of $1,062,500 for the purchase, lease, or lease purchase of the following capital equipment, projects, and/or improvements as specified in the article. Each listed capital equipment or project must be authorized by a majority vote of the Select Board prior to any purchase and/or implementation of project and/or expenditure of funds, and to direct the Select Board to trade as part of the purchase price or to sell or dispose of any equipment no longer necessary, and to authorize the Select Board to apply for and accept any state or federal grant or assistance, or both, that may be available for any of the specified purchases or to take any other action thereon. This article comes before town meeting on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote. Is there a second? I hear a second. This article requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion on Article 8? I see someone over in the middle, on the far right.
Jennifer Kinnear, 237 Alder Road. There's a discrepancy between the amount in the book and in the handout. The book says 1062500, and my copy of the handout says 1339500.
The warrant has 1062500. That's what I'm looking for. We have to go by what's in the warrant. I'm sorry? Okay. Yes. The amount is, as I read, $1,062,500. I'm sorry, there was a mistake in the handout. I'm not sure where you got the handout, but as to the article, it's the amount that I just stated, $1,062,500. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 8, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. All right, well, now we're ready for the quiz, because we're on to Article 9. Let me just state the article first. To see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the sum of $1,052,000, $50,000, I'm sorry. Say that again, $1,050,000 for the purchase, lease, or lease purchase of the specified capital equipment, projects and/or improvements as delineated in the article. Each listed capital equipment or project must be authorized by a majority vote of the Select Board prior to any purchase and/or implementation of project and/or expenditure of funds, and to direct the Select Board to trade as part of the purchase price or to sell or dispose of any equipment no longer necessary, and to authorize the Select Board to apply for and accept any state or federal grant or assistance, or both, that may be available for any of the specified purchases or to take any other action thereon. This article comes before town meeting on the motion of Finance and Warrant Commission that the article be indefinitely postponed. Is there a second? Okay. I'm going to discuss a little bit indefinite postponement. Essentially, this means that FinCom recommends that that you not vote in favor of the article. So the discussion is whether it should be indefinitely postponed. That requires a majority vote. If town meeting votes to indefinitely postpone the article, we'll never get to the merits of the article. The article will be defeated. If you vote against indefinite postponement, then we will discuss the article. And this article requires a two-thirds vote in order to pass. Does anyone wish to discuss the motion for indefinite postponement? You don't see any? I don't see any either. All those in favor of indefinite postponement, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. It appears to be a vote in favor of indefinite postponement. Madam Clerk, it is a vote in favor of indefinite postponement by majority vote. Article 10. To see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money to pay for the cost of purchasing a heavy-duty dump truck with plow, and to determine whether this appropriation shall be raised by taxation, transfer from available funds, borrowing, or otherwise, or to take any other action relative thereto. The motion of FinCom is that the town appropriate $325,000 to pay for the cost of purchasing such a heavy-duty dump truck with plow, including all costs incidental there and related thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, be authorized to borrow $325,000 under General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 7, Subsection 1, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore. Any premium received upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of the costs of the issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws 44, Section 20, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount. and that the Select Board is authorized to take any other next action necessary to carry out this project. That's the motion of FinCom. Is there a second? I hear a second. This article requires a 2/3 vote. Is there any discussion on Article 10? I see a woman in the middle. Peach, the woman with the mask.
It's not just a mask, it's a cat mask. I'm Claire Galkowski, 320 Dover Road. And this might be a silly question, but since we just voted indefinite postponement for the Article 9, which was to be funded from the meals and hotels tax, is there a reason that this item cannot be paid for from the meals and hotel tax rather than borrowing and raising our debt exclusion?
I think the budget has already been approved. If you wanted it to come from the budget, you should have addressed that in Article 3. So I think any such amendment would be out of order at this point. Is there any other discussion on Article 10? Mr. Atkins down here in the front.
David Atkins, 783 High Street. Just to clarify that question, I think because we just voted indefinite postponement on $1 million that was to come from available funds. So how come that $1 million is not now available for other things in the warrant?
Well, yeah, you want to answer it?
What you'll call whether or not you could use meal tax for it. Pam would have to say that, yes, you could use meal tax technically to fund it. So the question is whether it's, in order for him to actually to use the meal tax money to fund this or any other appropriation.
Is there a written amendment to the article?
No, I don't have. It was just a question as to just try to understand where the if the funding has not like the amendment would be in the form of saying to change this to be to appropriate from free cash instead of borrowing, but I'm not understanding if that's possible. Is that if I put that in writing, would that be acceptable? And actually, she said from meals tax was to use that funding source instead of borrowing. I think the intent of this is to ask if we can avoid debt by using funds that were not voted for something else in the warrant.
Yeah, that would be an amendment to the warrant. Somebody would need to give us a written amendment. Rick, there's a woman over here on the right, Mrs. Schwartz, I think? No.
I was just going to say that it's my understanding that Article 9, which we didn't vote on, is supposed to come from the meals and hotels tax, and frankly, I wouldn't count on getting much money from that this year.
Mrs. Hyde's going to speak.
I just want to address that issue. With the Article 9 that was proposed, that's existing meals tax. We do not make proposals to spend future meals tax revenue, but you're right, future meals tax revenue is impacted, most definitely. So in a way, the meals tax account, Pam spoke about it at the beginning of this afternoon, is put in an account and requires 2/3 to spend that money. We are not going to see increases in that account for a while now, given the current pandemic and the closure of businesses, hotels, and restaurants. So it's a judgment call on whether or not we even want to spend what we already have in the account. Personally, I would say no, but that's just my own personal feeling. I think it would be wise to hold on to that money because there are uncertain things going forward, and we've already budgeted in our borrowing capability within the budget to fund this through a borrowing. This is a important piece of capital equipment for the DPW, so we have a means to fund it. That's fine. I think we'd be better off saving the money in the meals tax that we've already collected and hold it for the future. Thank you.
Mr. Atkins again, and then there's a gentleman in the back, 2/3 on the left.
So I'm withdrawing my amendment. Like, I didn't actually make an amendment, so I'm withdrawing that. I
Okay.
just wanted clarification on how this process worked.
Brian Hawk, 27 Sexton Ave. So it seems that there's $1,050,000 still out there to be utilized. Since it's not going to be utilized, can it be reallocated internally to the school department to avoid those 14 layoffs and cover the cost of the for the dump?
I'm getting hung up on earrings here with this mask. No, we have a policy of not using meals tax, which is essentially one-time revenue, on operating budgets, which we need to be able to sustain. So we would not want to take meals tax money as a funding source for any operating budget item.
Okay, I've got,
It's a written amendment.
Okay.
I don't know how good it is. Do I have to announce it? Claire Galkowski, 320 Dover Road. I just scratched out a written amendment. It may or may not meet your criteria, but I brought it up, so there you go.
we have something in writing. Could somebody bring it up and have town council take a look at it? Anyone else wish to be heard while that's being reviewed? We have a motion to amend Article 10, and it is to delete the language that says the treasurer is authorized to borrow $325,000, and will supplement or replace that language with the treasurer is directed to transfer from meals/hotel tax revenue the sum of $325,000. Is that the substance of the, that's not it?
I think it's out of order because only town meeting can authorize the move of the funds from the meals tax.
So, can I suggest something? We know what the intent is. So we
Okay. We understand what Mrs. Delkowski is trying to accomplish. Council going to work on your amendment a little bit. We're going to go on to Article 11 and then come back to Article 10 when we have something a little clearer. So Article 11 is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $125,000 for this stabilization fund, established in accordance with General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 5, Capital B, or to take any action thereon. This article comes before town meeting on the motion of Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote. Is there a second? Second. This article requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion on Article 11? I don't see any. All those in favor of Article 11, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. We'll go on to Article 12. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $1,465,000 for the OPEB Liability Trust Fund established in accordance with General Laws, Chapter 32, Capital B, Section 20, or to take any action thereon. Comes before town meeting on the motion of FinCom that the town so vote. Is there a second? This requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion on Article 12? I see someone way back in the middle, way down the back. Is that the only one?
So, Christina Martin, 23 Brookfield Road. Do we know if we pay for these things by borrowing, what the interest rate is that we'll get? So, for example, if it's practically free money, it might make more sense to borrow to pay for it than to take it out of cash.
We don't know what the actual interest rate until we actually go and sell the bond. But yes, borrowing has been very inexpensive for us over the last couple of years. The last long-term bond we sold was a 2% interest rate, and we just a couple of weeks ago sold a short-term one-year note that was a 1.04% interest rate. So yes, borrowing is very inexpensive for us at this point in time.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of Article 12, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. Madam Clerk, it is a unanimous vote in favor. You ready for 10 again? Well, okay. We'll go on to Article 13, the Road Improvement Bond. To see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money for road improvements, including but not limited to improvements on Route 109, crosswalk improvements, paving, and sidewalks, and to determine whether this appropriation shall be raised by taxation, transfer from available funds, borrowing, or otherwise, and to take any other action relative thereto. It's the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town appropriate $4,650,000 to pay costs for road improvements, including but not limited to improvements to Route 109, town-wide crosswalk improvements, paving, and sidewalks, including all costs incidental and related thereto. And that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, is authorized to borrow $4,650,000 under General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 7, subsection 1, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore. Any premium received upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any premium applied to the payment of the costs of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 20, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount, and that the Select Board is authorized to take any other action necessary to carry out this project. Is there a second? You have a second. This article requires a 2/3 vote. Is there discussion on Article 13? We've got a woman down here in the middle. Is there anyone else that we can get queue up for?
Oh, thanks. So, Maria Costantini, 15 Spellman Road in Westwood. If I understand, this is phase 2 of a project that we funded last year. And I remember there were a lot of discussions last year about the phase 1 because we weren't sure like we wanted to spend that money. But we were told at that time that there was already work going on 109. And so it was advantageous to do that project at that time and take advantage of the fact that the crews were there. So this year, is this project urgent or is it linked to state funding, and if we don't fund it, then we lose the funds? Or can it be postponed?
Good evening. Todd Corchin, 172 Burgess Ave, also Director of Public Works. I would declare this bond as an urgent matter. Part of the bond, actually a good amount of the bond, pertains to the Route 109 project that we've actually bid already. We have a number in place. It lines up with the projections that we had presented before FinCom back in January. And as far as the pavement infrastructure on 109, I think we can all agree as a community in some of those areas, if not all of the areas, it definitely needs to be addressed ASAP. It's also important to note with specifics to that Route 109 project, we're not only addressing the pavement infrastructure, but we're also addressing curb ramps, which meet all the ADA compliant issues that currently we do not meet out on Route 109. And along with Route 109, there's obviously the mentioning of the crosswalk assessment, and these are all components that were built into the bond. The crosswalk assessment that we had completed about 1.5 years ago took a good, strong look at all 200 crosswalk locations throughout the community. We have a very thorough, descriptive evaluation of all those locations, cost estimates associated with all those locations, and that cost estimate to actually address everything in the community from a crosswalk safety standpoint came at $500,000 that you see as part of this bond. And then again, the mentioning of the sidewalk locations, that also entails installing granite curbing to create a reveal, to create a more safe environment for our pedestrian foot traffic, along with, again, addressing all the ADA compliancy issues. So in my eyes, selfishly speaking, it's very urgent, and I hope the community sees that as such.
I recognize someone down here on the left, about 3/4 of the way back. Anyone else waiting to speak? We'll get you right here in the middle, Rick, beside the camera.
Brian Hawk, 27 Sexton Ave. Of this total amount, does this reflect work, any portion of this that's already been done, or is this all work to be done?
Answer your question, this is all work to be done, to be completed.
Phil Dunkelbarger again, 125 Sunrise. I'm just looking for a way here to respond and answer to some of the other members who are looking for some mechanism of projecting to those who are really going to be up against it in the following year that we're not just going on, business as usual, because it's not business as usual for them. And it seems to me that, borrowing $4+ million is maybe I don't know whether the term urgent is really the right term. It would be nice to have, you know, granite curbing and so forth, but maybe we can get through another year without borrowing $4+ million so that at least people think that their situation is being considered.
Mr. Schwartz over here, and then there's a gentleman 3/4 of the way down on the far left.
Marla Schwartz, 32 Westwood Glen Road. I really think that this is a matter of urgency because 2 years ago I tripped and fell on the sidewalk on High Street and I broke my elbow. I am a wonderful and adorable person, so I did not sue the town. But there are plenty of people out there who are not as wonderful and adorable as I am and who, when they trip and fall and need 2 operations on their elbows, the $4 million will look like a bargain.
Okay, number 6 is over here, and then we have Mr. Atkins will be number 7.
My name is Chris Hilton at 167 Pond Street. I have 3 small children. We use the Pond Street crosswalks every day. They're not adequate.
I'll get her number 8.
Most of us know
Okay.
in the neighborhood we had a tragedy there 2 years ago. To say this isn't an urgent matter, I think is troubling. That part of this bond is well past due.
Is it a question? Or?
Just a comment too. I hope all the residents in attendance today understand that the bond, all 4 of the components revolve around the topic of safety. And as the gentleman mentioned out back there, and the nice young lady over there mentioned, that's our goal here, is to be proactive, and that's what we did about 1.5 years ago. Is completed this crosswalk assessment. It's been discussed. Everything is teed up for us, and I know several of you have seen the work we do with Public Works as far as the capital projects and how effective and efficient they get done. But it is important to note, again, all 4 components, including Route 109 with the ADA compliancy issues, the imprint work. Every single crosswalk along Route 109 will have an imprint inlay. So you'll see it. You're not just going to see 2 white stripes. There's retro-reflectivity that we've already bid into the documents that we just opened up a few days ago, that actually has reflectors in the double yellow lines that you'll see at night versus the common double yellow line striping that you see now, and at night it doesn't appear to be much of anything. So again, safety is the biggest component of all 4 of the major bullets that we hit. So.
All right, I have Mr. Atkins here, and then number 8, the woman back there.
So the last 2 speakers, and Brian especially, that was what I was going to bring up in particular. That is an urgent matter. It's been almost 3 years since that accident on Pond Street. And that's one element of this. But the sidewalk improvements, all these things, they've been working, our DPW has been working hard to improve things. And this is the culmination of that. It's been postponed a couple of town meetings now because of various reasons. It was to fit into the budget. They've got these contracts in place. They're ready to do the work. We absolutely need to do this now. The other part of this is that it's an investment in the community. And as you look around this time, I see so many people riding their bikes and walking around the community now. We're not sheltering in place. We're social distancing, but we're out in the community now, and it's been great to see so much activity. We need to make it safer for everyone, and this bond is needed sorely for that purpose. So please give us the 2/3 in favor of this. Thank you.
All right, next is this woman. There's someone way in the corner standing. Does he wish to speak next, or is he just stretching? Just stretching, okay. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, Elaine DeArena, 221 Hartford Street. There are sidewalks currently on Hartford that are in disrepair, and every rainstorm washes rocks, dirt, gravel onto the sidewalk, and they're dangerous. There also isn't a curb on the street separating the sidewalk from the street. And the Beta Group did a survey or a study last spring and found that on average 8,000 cars travel on Hartford Street every day. Hartford Street is a street where kids walk to school, people walk to and from town, the library, the senior center. So it would be a huge safety improvement to have better sidewalks and curbs on Hartford Street.
Is there any other discussion on Article 13? We got one here and then one here.
Thank you. Hi, Kate Wynn, 10 Cedar Hill Drive. Great to hear everybody's thoughts on this. I did just want to mention, and I care very much about safety. I'm on the Pedestrian and Bike Safety Committee. I care very much about safety for our pedestrians and bicyclists and everybody. But also, I did want to go back to a point that was brought up by someone earlier, that for many of us during this time, we may be forced to tap into the value of our homes, and a home in a safe town has a much better value than a home in a town that doesn't value your safety. So I just wanted to see Westwood support both parts of our lives, our physical safety and the financial safety of individual investors in their homes. Thanks. Please support.
Hi, my name's Amanda Phillips, 13 Webster Street. I was just looking for clarity regarding the sidewalks. You mentioned, or I'm sorry, the crosswalks. You said that all of the crosswalks on 109 would be redone with imprints and I think reflectors. Is that going to be across town or just 109?
It's specifically across Route 109. We will be looking at the other locations, though, and depending upon the circumstance of the recommendations per the study that we received, will dictate what type of improvements we will be making at each. Some might see an imprint work, some might just see signage, some might see slight geometrical reconfiguration, but each individual location will receive a different. For the sake of keeping everything uniformed within the scope of this project, how we bid it was to be consistent with the crosswalks, and that's what we hope to do moving forward with all.
Anyone else wish to be heard? We have someone in the middle, right behind the camera.
Bob Rich, 34 York Way. I live at the corner of York and Gloucester Road, which intersects with Hartford Street, and I walk down the sidewalk on Hartford Street to High Street almost every day. For those of you who haven't been on that sidewalk, the sidewalk is flush with the road, and as a previous speaker said, there's no curb, there's no berm to protect the walkers. And cars are flying down Hartford Street, sometime in excess of 40 miles an hour. And I was almost hit and probably killed by a young male driver who was driving on Hartford Street, texting on his phone. His car drifted out of the lane, across the grass, and into the sidewalk that I was walking on. And I was just lucky that he happened to look up and correct his line of travel. So I'm voting in favor of support of this article. Thank you.
Are we ready to vote on the article? Oh, I'm sorry. One over here.
Hi, my name is Carrie DeAngelis, and I'm at 19 Warwick Drive. And I also would like to ask you to support borrowing for the road work. First, I'd like to reiterate what was said earlier, that this is to replace spending we've been doing for many years. And these are investments in our community that we need to continue to uphold the value of our community. I also urge you to think about the safety, as I have children that are required to walk to both the middle school and the high school because they are not bused. And my child has had an accident on the road due to the fact that the trash barrels need to be placed into the current sidewalks, which are insufficient. And so as she was riding her bike, was tossed into the road, which then required an ambulance. And it was a very, as you can imagine, it's a very safety, it's an issue. But that isn't really why I'm asking you to support borrowing for the road work over the next 10 years. I'm asking you because if you think about the investment that was made on 109, as you drove down 109 over the last year, there have been people out walking. And all of a sudden, we've become a walkable community. I see elderly people who are able to walk safely because it's level. I'm able to walk from where I live down there because I'm not afraid to run or be out with my family because it's more safe. I think the investment in all of the roads, in the crosswalks, as well as this entire bill, allows Westwood to be seen as a more walkable community. And I think that will help us to make these investments we need to make in the long term. Thank you.
Is there a gentleman here wishes to speak? There's a motion to move the question. Is there a second? All in favor of moving the question, say aye. Okay. This article requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of Article 13, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. Madam Clerk, it is a unanimous vote in favor. We have one remaining article. We'll go back to Article 10. There is a motion by Mrs. Delkowski, is that the correct name? Delkowski, which will change Article 10 so that the money is not borrowed, but will be transferred from the hotel and meals tax in the amount of $325,000 for the purchase of a heavy-duty dump truck with the plow. The rest of the article apparently to remain as written. Is there a second on the motion? We have a second. Okay. So now we discuss the amendment to the article. A motion to amend the article requires a majority vote. Does anyone wish to discuss the amendment to the article? Kim?
Yes, I just wanted to mention, just so people are aware, now that you've approved Article 13, the town will be going out to borrow. And that's one of the reasons we had used the borrowing as the funding source for the Article 10. So we will have to go out and sell a bond anyway, and when we do that, we do combine all of the items that are approved by borrowing. I did mention earlier that it is right now very inexpensive for us to borrow. We are getting very low interest rates. So if we were to go forward with Article 10 as a borrowing, it would be combined with Article 13, and we would sell that bond together.
Get someone here in the middle beside the camera.
Chris McEwen, 70 Lorraine Road. I just want to follow up on what Pam just said and note that Pam opened up describing why our town is in such good shape financially, and it's great foresight and really doing the hard things all along so we have the resources when the time comes to continue to provide what the town does. To take this money out of the meals, hotel and meals tax now and spend it when we can borrow at probably the best, Pam, you can say we're not. We probably got as good a credit rating or a bond rating as any municipality has. And to take out a 15 or 20-year bond at that rate is crazy. We should be keeping our powder dry in that fund because we don't know what next year and the year after brings. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the amendment? All those in favor of amending Article 10 as stated, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. It appears to be a vote against. It is a vote against the amendment. So now we're ready to proceed again on Article 10 as presented. And again, this requires a 2/3 vote. I've read the motion initially. It is seconded. Does anyone else wish to discuss Article 10 as it's stated in the warrant book? I don't see any. All those in favor of Article 10, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. I want to thank everyone for a very orderly town meeting. I will entertain in a moment a motion to dissolve town meeting. As you leave, I ask that you maintain an orderly dismissal, maintain 6-foot distancing. Is there a motion to dissolve? Second, all in favor of dissolving town meeting, please say aye. Opposed? Town meeting is hereby dissolved. Thank you, everyone.